Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live. My name is Brandon Drumm. I'm here with Parker Thune, Spencer Forsythe on the board. And we do know that there is a basketball game going on, but we are still here to talk. You can watch as you watch us or listen or whatever, but we're here to answer.
We're giving you something to be excited about on a Wednesday night.
I mean, it's Bedlam. Look, they actually named the interesting thing about this, and I don't know what it would take for Oklahoma to make the NCAA tournament. Maybe have to make to the Big 12 title game, I would assume, would be my guess. But they have more quad one wins than like so many people that are like in the top 25. This team is weird, dude. Super weird. But anyways, yeah, we got news to talk about, Parker.
We do.
I think first and foremost, outside of the basketball tournament going on, Bedlam, you got to talk a lot of Michael Hawkins and the 4-star Frisco Emerson quarterback announced tonight that he will be making a decision between TCU and Oklahoma on April 8th. I'm not as confident as Parker, but I still think Oklahoma ekes this out. I think they feel pretty good about it. But so does TCU. Having said that, I also don't know the Hawkins the way Parker does. So I'm going to let Parker say his piece, and we're all going to sit back and listen.
Yeah, look, here's the reality. It's not an accident that this announcement of a decision date comes directly on the heels of his most recent unofficial visit to Norman, a visit on which his younger brother Malik, 2025 defensive back, picked up an offer from Oklahoma, his third collegiate offer and second Power 5. And I talked to several folks over the weekend regarding Michael Hawkins, several folks that know that recruitment are close to it. And the message I received was, look, they're going to get the family in town all together. They're going to figure out what the announcement itself looks like, but it's going to be coming here before too long. It's just a matter of how quickly they can get the whole clan together to be present for Michael's announcement. Obviously, he announced earlier tonight that it's going to take place on April 8th. That falls on Easter weekend. Really convenient juncture, right? You get the whole family in town for Easter, and you get to watch the kid, the grandkid, the nephew, whatever it may be. You get to watch Michael Hawkins commit to his school of choice, and it's between OU and TCU. Given the timeline here, given the chronology of how everything has gone down over the last week plus, and especially given some of the things, some of the rumblings behind the scenes that I've heard over the last couple of weeks on this recruitment, I have no reason to doubt right now that Oklahoma is going to be the pick for Michael Hawkins. Now, don't expect TCU to quit, and a month is a long time, right? And so if there is something to be apprehensive about as an Oklahoma fan, it's probably that, right? The reality that you're still a month out. And a lot can change in a month. Heck, a lot can change in a week, as you found out with DJ Hicks last fall. But those recruitments are not one and the same, not direct parallels by any means. I think despite the fact that we're still a month out from a decision date, Oklahoma is still in the driver's seat and should remain there over the next 4+ weeks leading into the decision for Michael Hawkins.
Yeah, man, I hear you on all that. At the same time, I was talking to a source the other day, and they were like, he would be naive, I think, a little bit. And I think everybody's kind of naive if you're not leery about the following Jackson Arnold bit. And I know, having talked to Michael Hawkins Sr. and Michael Hawkins Jr., that they're not like, quote, quote, scared of the competition.
Nope.
But at the same time, it's a lot like water. Or liquid. You go towards the path of least resistance, right? There's going to be a lot of resistance in Norman. especially as a freshman. So, I mean, look, and that's not the same. Hawkins can't beat out Arnold because that'd be stupid to say that as well. And Arnold is a really, really, really good player, one of the best high school quarterbacks we've seen live in a while. But the raw athleticism, the upside of Michael Hawkins is scary. Like scary. He is so raw and so talented. If somebody can refine him and get him to really tighten up a lot of his skill set to go along with that athleticism, it could be a problem in the SEC. That's just the facts. Now, did Oklahoma do enough to convince him that that's the case? That look, even if you sat behind Jackson Arnold, let's say for hypothetical purpose, Parker, that Arnold redshirts this year, and Hawkins chooses Oklahoma, but at the same time, you got a redshirt freshman and a true freshman come in, but you obviously the most likely scenario is after Gabriel leaves, you got Arnold as your starting quarterback, right? Like that's the most obvious scenario, right? In this situation. Would you agree with that?
I would.
Okay. Having said that, you let Arnold play out his redshirt freshman year. That's year 2. As you redshirt, now you're a redshirt freshman during Arnold's redshirt sophomore year. That's Arnold's 3rd year. As a redshirt sophomore, you are now the starting quarterback for the next 2 years at the University of Oklahoma before you decide to potentially enter the draft. So at the end of the day, it's not like it's actually the same, because when you go to TCU, Parker, guess what? We both don't see Morris as like just jetting off to the NFL after this year, right? Like one way or another, you're going to have to sit at least 2 years at TCU as well. Correct? Like that's unless you beat him out. But like, I believe Hawkins can, and he probably potentially would, but that's not a given. So both scenarios, both places, there's a little resistance. Obviously, going up against Morris is going to be a lot harder than going up against Arnold head to head. But you have the legacy aspect of it all too, right? Like there's so many intangibles, and you've got the fact that he played on the same team. Hawkins Sr. played on the same team with the majority of those guys that are on staff. Like, and not just the guys that are coordinators or position coaches, guys that literally are on staff as off-field guys too, analysts, whether they're soul mission, all that type of stuff. There's a lot of connections there, Parker.
There is, and I saw it circulating on the OU Insider VIP board today. The thought that, well, Jeff Lebby's just going to take a head coaching job and Michael Hawkins is just going to follow him wherever he goes.
I saw that too.
And look, I don't want to completely disavow that, because anytime you lose a coordinator, anytime you lose a kid's primary recruiter, there's always the threat that the kid's going to follow him, right? But
yeah,
it's not as if Jeff Lebby is the only reason Michael Hawkins would, in theory, commit to the University of Oklahoma. We are not talking about a Caleb Williams, Lincoln Riley type situation.
Correct.
We're talking about a kid that has grown up his entire life pulling for the Sooners, is very cognizant of the fact that his dad was a Sooner under Bob Stoops, has visited campus 8 times of his own accord on his own dime. He's very serious about Oklahoma. The family is very serious about Oklahoma. And Michael Hawkins has a lot of peers, Brandon, a lot of peers down in the DFW area that are also very, very high on Oklahoma and are seemingly just waiting on him to pull the trigger so that they can follow suit. And that's something we've talked about. Devon Mitchell took to Twitter tonight, quote tweeted Hawkins' announcement of his date and said, "Where are we going?" Now, guys say that doesn't necessarily mean Devon Mitchell is automatically going wherever Michael Hawkins lands, but that does suggest that Hawkins is going to have some sway with elite players in the 2024 and 2025 classes, especially the guys that he is familiar with and has spent time around, both physically and in terms of on the playing field, when you're thinking about Devon Mitchell and the connection that those two had during their 2 years together at Allen High School.
Yeah, I mean, those two they're tight. Obviously, he's at Los Alamitos now. Speaking of Devon Mitchell, he still talks up Oklahoma, though. Like when obviously Greg Biggins just did an interview, it was posted on OU Insider VIP. If you're not on there, you should 50% off right now. Literally $53 to get you a whole year, all that type of stuff. But we have that note up there, and he talked about Oklahoma and the fact that Coach Finley and him are super tight. The relationship with him and Michael Hawkins, all that type of stuff. There's a connection. There wasn't a lot of TCU talk. So that right there tells you that if Devon Mitchell is going to follow him, he's going to follow him to Oklahoma. I can't foresee him passing up Oklahoma, USC, all that type to go, oh, I'm going to go, TCU.
TCU didn't make Devon Mitchell's top 11 to that point.
That's true. That's true. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's just, it doesn't connect. And so at the end of the day, I mean, this is just one of those recruitments where there's a lot of good connections, and that you can't really throw away the fact that there's a lot of people that believe that Hawkins was silenced to Arkansas with Briles there. And the way things have panned out with the TCU stuff, there may be it seems like there's probably some validity to some of that. But this time has also given Oklahoma a chance to really make a run more than they had. You have Levy really focused on this, really pushing, just everything, the connections, the offense, personnel that's around him. Like, Oklahoma has a lot of advantages there, but at the same time, that relationship that Hawkins has with Briles and potential easier route to the starting quarterback has left Michael Hawkins, listening to TCU and really making them a player in this. And look, would you be shocked if he picked TCU? Like, would you be shocked?
Would I be surprised? Yes. Would I be shocked? No.
Well, that's what I'm getting at is surprised. Would you be surprised?
Yeah, I would be surprised. I would be surprised if TCU is the pick.
Right. All right. Well, another issue is Tavani Mizell, the 4-star running back out of DeMatha High School in the DMV area, announced tonight that he is decommitting from UGA, two-time defending national champs. Shocked a lot of people, but if you've followed Mizell on Twitter or if you've been on OU Insider, we've long stated that he is a sleeper when it comes to Oklahoma's class at the running back position. And that surprises some people. It shouldn't, but it does because, and I get it, UGA, all that type of stuff. He took another unofficial to Oklahoma this past weekend. And I'm here to tell you guys, after talking to him for a long time, like I know his dad, I met him and his dad and his mom and his little brother at the Miami when he was living in Fort Lauderdale last spring at the UA camp where he was co-MVP at the running back position. Now, I'm going to also make a point that there are some out there that believe his junior year was not as strong as his sophomore year, where he averaged 6 yards a carry when he was at Fort Lauderdale. Last year at DeMatha, he had some struggles apparently. Having said that, you still see a lot of teams recruiting him really hard in North Carolina, Maryland, which I do believe he's going to be visiting those two programs fairly soon, if I remember correctly. You also have Oklahoma and several other programs out there on the East Coast that he's taking a good, long, hard look at. I do expect him to take an official to Oklahoma, given the chance in June. He may be back for the spring game. Oklahoma's squarely in it. I think what you run into right now is a pecking order, Parker, in the first come, first serve. If I was to pick right now, like who I think is going to be in the class at running back, I would go Caden Durham and James Peoples. Like that would be the two I would pick first as far as who I think is going to be the ones to jump on the first come, first serve. And talking to people, I think that's kind of, I don't want to say that it's Oklahoma's pecking order at all. Like I don't know that for a fact, but you just kind of get a sense that when you look at all that and how Oklahoma's recruiting, Caden Durham being from Moore originally, that's obvious. James People, obviously he's from San Antonio area, if I remember correctly off the top of my head. And I just think Oklahoma really, really likes those three. I'm trying to think of the fourth back in this scenario off the top of my head, Parker. I'm sure you're pulling it up right now, aren't you?
So the fourth back beyond whom?
Mizell, Peoples, Durham.
Xavier Robinson.
Oh yeah, Xavier Robinson. I'm going to see him tomorrow, by the way. So I should know a little bit more about that recruitment.
You got to throw Taylor.
I wasn't thinking in-state because Xavier Robinson is a take no matter what. He's an in-state offer. Like that to me isn't. I was talking about out-of-state guys. Payne is who I'm thinking out of
Jeremy Payne. Yeah, there you go. But even so, like he's honestly, Jeremy Payne's a good back, but he to me is so far down the pecking order right now that you got to consider Taylor Tatum. Is he really likes OU?
Yeah, he just hasn't been showing up on campus. Like he had a chance and decided not to this past weekend. Yeah, he had a baseball tournament and all, but I think he got done with it in time that he could have arrived. And I don't know where Oklahoma stands. I think he's leaning more Texas type deal than he is Oklahoma, in my opinion there.
Then you have Anthony Carey, you have Stacey Gage, and you have Jarrett Gibson, who's visiting for what that's worth. I don't know at this point that he ends up with an offer, but I think one thing is unambiguously clear right now. Tavani Mizell wants in at Oklahoma, right? Mm-hmm. If Oklahoma doesn't end up with Tavani Mizell in the class, it's going to be because DeMarco Murray said no, not because Tavani Mizell suddenly decided he wanted to be somewhere else. Like everything suggests that the kid has an expressed desire to play for DeMarco Murray and be an Oklahoma Sooner. So if we're talking first come, first serve, Mizell's one of those guys where if he's willing to jump on board quickly, I imagine that Oklahoma would take him. And I think at that point you can, obviously you don't want to push all your chips in on one particular guy, but you can really then just narrow the field to Durham and Peoples, hone in on those two, and whoever's willing to pop first, you take them, right? I think there has to be a priority placed on Durham because he is a more native and a guy that literally wears number 29 because of DeMarco Murray. So that's probably the guy that you're going to favor over James Peoples, but think about what a world it would be, Brandon, and it may be the world we're living in, where James Peoples, a top 100 national player and a top 10 national prospect at the running back position, may end up on the outside looking in of Oklahoma's class because there are guys that are more eager to commit to play under DeMarco Murray than he is. That's wild to think about.
The whole situation's wild, but again, as you stated, it shows exactly, the prowess of DeMarco Murray on the recruiting trail. Last year, he ended up with 2 4-stars. I mean, previous year, obviously, ended up with 2 big-time running backs, and then obviously had Eric Gray before that. So there is a lot of change that's happened in the running back room. And then remember, OU fans were scorning and they had fire and brimstone after DeMarco Murray. You remember that back in the 2021 recruiting cycle? Eric Gray happened and everything changed after that. It's Sawchuk, Barnes. Obviously, you've ended up with Hicks last year and Hollywood. So, I mean, like it's completely changed. Like the way people think of DeMarco Murray on the recruiting trail. And I can tell you, he had a direct effect on Peyton Bowen's recruitment too. I mean, he got in on that one as well and really got aggressive with Todd Bates. Yeah, obviously Coach Hall, Coach Valai, those guys were leading the whole charge, but those guys really came in and helped. DeMarco Murray was big time in that. So I the guy's recruiting prowess has just gotten better and better and better as each year goes along. And you have to also get that these guys that are coming up right now grew up with DeMarco Murray being like that dude in the NFL. Like they were 10, 11, 12, 13 years old as he was winning MVPs and doing all that type of stuff. So this is this is going to be like peak DeMarco Murray recruiting, I think, and like him being able to kind of do what he wants. And you're seeing that in the 2024 cycle with the relationships he's already built and the guys he's in on. Like if he can land Caden Durham and James Peoples or Caden Durham and Tavani Mizell to go along with Xavier Robinson, wow, right? Like, because Xavier Robinson's a guy that I believe can play multiple positions. Like, I don't think you can pigeonhole him at running back. I know DeMarco's recruiting him, but he's big, strong, athletic. He could be an H-back tight end type. He could be a linebacker. He could slim down and stick at running back. Like, there's so many things you can do with a body type like him. Would you agree with that?
I would. I mean, you look at pictures of the dude, he's got legs like tree trunks. That's not your run-of-the-mill running back.
No, right on, man. Like he's a hoss. he's a load to bring down, and the reason why Collar Albert was so dominant. I can't wait to get out there and check out Tristan Haynes and the rest of the guys at Carl Albert tomorrow with Coach Dunn. It's gonna be really fun. Let's talk about the junior day, Parker. I'll let you talk about your end on guys you talked with first, and then I'll come on my end as and kind of piggyback off of everything you said.
Yeah, so I'm trying to gosh, there have been so many conversations since Saturday. I think the two big ones are obviously Hawkins and Will Nwaneri, and I went ahead and put in an OU crystal ball for Nwaneri on Sunday night. I really do feel as though OU has seized the bull by the horns in that recruitment, and they now lead. And my thing with Nwaneri was always, I think it'll be more difficult for Oklahoma to get the lead in the first place than it will be for OU to maintain it. And so now that they have grabbed the lead for Will Nwaneri, I think it's going to be really tough for this staff to squander it. And I think it's going to be really tough for any other school to resonate with Will Nwaneri the way that Oklahoma has, because to this point, he was favoring Missouri. The kid likes familiarity. He likes consistency. He's a relationship-driven kid. When you're talking five-star defensive linemen and their respective recruitments, this is not a recruitment that's going to take a bizarre DJ Hicks-esque turn at the very end. This is a recruitment that is a lot more similar to that of PJ Adebawore. Now, PJ is one of the most no-nonsense recruits I have ever been around. Maybe the most no-nonsense recruit I have ever been around, which is why he's going to be a freaking stud, both at this level and in the NFL. But Will Nwaneri he just doesn't get caught up in all the BS, man. He's focused on ball. He's focused on finding the best fit for himself. And here's the thing. He's got really, really good, solid influences around him. And that starts with his head coach, at least some in North, and Jamar Mosey. Jamar is one of the most genuinely good-intentioned, kind-hearted dudes I have ever been around in this profession. He is not going to let his guys make an emotional decision or a shallow decision without being absolutely certain that they have evaluated the situation and the process from all angles and arrived at the decision that's going to suit them the best or make them the most comfortable. For instance, if not for Jamar Mosey, Caden Green would have been committed last January or February. But guess what? He kept taking visits, and it wasn't because he wanted to, believe me.
So I'm telling you right now, you're going to get the OU fans mad at that alumni. How could you do that?
No, but I mean, that's the thing. Jamar's a big OU guy, right? Obviously played at OU, won a national championship at OU. But when I say he's got good intentions with his guys, he can put allegiances aside. He can put his, he can put the emotions that he feels for a place like Oklahoma aside and look at it objectively and say, okay, you need to make the best decision for you. And here are all the things you need to see and be mindful of before you make that decision. So Caden Green took 5 or 6 months longer to commit than he probably would have preferred to. Caden didn't love the recruiting process. I remember talking to a source who told me that during his LSU visit, Caden was just like completely checked out. It was just glaringly obvious he did not want to be there. And so like these kids are going to make their own decisions at the end of the day, but it's really, really helpful, I think, for a 5-star kid like Will Nwaneri, who's going to be pulled in a million different directions, to have a guy like Jamar in his corner who's going to say, nope, you're going to see this school, you're going to see this school, you're going to see this school, you're going to talk to this coach, talk to this coach, talk to this coach. You're going to check every box, cross every T, dot every I before you lock in a decision. And that's why right now we're looking at a July, August timeframe for Will Nwaneri's commitment. And man, this is where like I legitimately think there might have been a chance Will Nwaneri could have committed on Saturday, if not for the people in his corner. Because again, yeah, Jamar Mosey played at Oklahoma, but it's not Jamar Mosey's recruitment here. It's Will Nwaneri's. And so he's going to visit Notre Dame. He's going to visit Georgia. He's going to visit Ohio State and Texas A&M and Nebraska and Colorado. He's going to make this whole circuit in March and April. But once a kid's set on something in his heart, it's real hard to sway him. Not impossible, but difficult. And the Sooners did just about everything they could have done this past weekend to win over Will Nwaneri. And now it's a matter of being able to maintain that momentum until you can get him back on campus for a June official visit. And who knows, maybe he shows up to a place like Ohio State and decides he really loves it there and is maybe not quite as sure as he was before. But one thing you do know is that right now, Nwaneri's got 4 destinations penciled in for official visits: Oklahoma, Oregon, Missouri, Tennessee. And so at some point this summer, you're going to get the kid back on campus, and you're going to have an opportunity to get him to shut it down then and there. And if he doesn't, if OU isn't the last official that he takes, well, guess what? That doesn't mean anything. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. It may mean something, but PJ Adabare's last official visit was to Missouri.
Yeah.
He was never going to Missouri. So with Nwaneri, it's something that folks are going to have to develop a bit of patience with, and going to have to be willing to see this process through in the long term. It's not going to come to a conclusion anytime soon. We're going to be waiting until midsummer before the kid locks it in. But I really, really like where Oklahoma sits. And I thought long and hard about entering that crystal ball. I didn't do it lightly, but from everybody I talked to, from all the conversations I had, OU hit a home run. Absolutely hit a home run on Saturday with the 5-star edge rusher.
Yeah, I mean, look, he wasn't the only 5-star out there, and Mongo asked the question earlier, so thank you. And obviously, what's up, Ricardo LeBlanc? He wanted us to give a shout out there, so we'll do that. Thanks for the super chat, Mongo. Look, Kobe Black's going to be, I mean, I don't want Oklahoma fans to get their hopes up. I will say this. I think Oklahoma did everything they could this past weekend. I talked to him briefly. Like, Kobe's, he doesn't like doing a lot of interviews. So when I can get him to respond, I've met him before in person and all that. So when I can get him to respond, it's a good day. He just said it was a great visit. He really enjoyed the practices, really enjoyed, and that's something we continually heard from a lot of the recruits that were on campus. Man, they started there like 7:30 in the morning, and we got to see a ton of practices. We got to see just how intense they are and the coaching stations and all that type of stuff. And you got to see the togetherness of the team and blah, blah, blah. And I think that was something that obviously it was intentional. They wanted to put on a show for the recruits, and they did. They wanted to show them the standard of what it is to be at Oklahoma. And if you're going to commit to Oklahoma, this is how you have to practice. This is what the offseason workouts are going to be like. And there's no exception. So if you don't want to do that, enjoy the visit, but you probably shouldn't consider Oklahoma. And I think it was very intentional by the staff and by Venables. If they can get Kobe Black to come back for another unofficial for the spring game and then an official visit, you'll have my attention at that point. I think similarly with Edric Houston, the 5-star defensive lineman out of Buford, Georgia, I'm going to be back in Atlanta this week. I'm going to try to go see him, Sammy Brown, and a couple other Georgia targets that I was unable to see when I went down there for the Under Armour camp because they just were no-shows, right? So KJ Bolden, players like that Oklahoma is recruiting hard and trying to get in on. Edric Houston, speaking of the 5-star defensive lineman, like I talked to him for a while. He really, really likes Oklahoma. Having said that, he's got a ton of visits lined up, and getting him away from Georgia and Clemson is going to be a pill. Like it's going to be very difficult to do. Now, Coach Bates has positioned Oklahoma really well there. As a matter of fact, Houston and TJ Lindsey were both on campus with Todd Bates from 7:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. that Saturday night. Williams Nwaneri was there for a long period of time too. I think he left at 7 or 8 o'clock that night, a little bit before them. But I know for a fact, like a lot of the staff left, and Bates was still there recruiting those two D linemen. And I'm telling you right now, Oklahoma has a really good shot with TJ Lindsey out of Arkansas, Bryan, Arkansas, a really good shot. I'm going to get to see him as well next week. I will be in Georgia for a little bit in Atlanta, and then I will be back in Arkansas, and then I'm heading to Tulsa. So I'll be making the rounds a little bit as we will also be Saturday and Sunday, we will be in Dallas, Parker and I, for the Under Armour camps. So we've got a lot of guys we'll be seeing that are targets, and that's on top of the junior day stuff. So I think those are guys that obviously you got Mizell, Oklahoma hit it out of the park with. You got Kobe Black. They did a really good job, really positioning themselves to potentially get another visit from him. Edric Houston to get another visit from him. TJ Lindsey, they will get another visit, most likely an official visit. He told me straight up, Oklahoma is one of my top schools, period. Like he was very adamant about that. So I think Oklahoma did a really good job. I know there's going to be guys that the fans have questions about that were on the list. I'm trying to think of guys off the top of my head. So if you guys have questions on visitors that you know were there, I mean, let us know. Parker, anything to
add? Let me see here. Who else?
I will agree with Satterfield. Jimmy Satterfield Lindsey is super underrated. He was so dominant at the National Combine in San Antonio. And Coach Bates is very close with his trainer as well. So I think Oklahoma is kind of sneaky good position there. I will also say I got some notes on David Stone coming up tomorrow. I have notes on Zadavian Sims coming up tomorrow on OU Insider VIP. I got a lot of notes coming from myself as far as recruiting goes.
Elsewhere from junior day, guys we haven't talked about yet. Michael Boganowski, the 3-star linebacker safety prospect out of the state of Kansas, big bodied defender and a guy that arrives with some vitriol. Hard hitting kid. Visited Oklahoma this past weekend, spoke highly of the experience. Brandon Hall has done a really, really good job of building a relationship there. He's going to visit Missouri this upcoming weekend. He's got a trip to Nebraska on tap for later this month. But it does seem like for now, Oklahoma's got an advantage there. And what's interesting, Brandon, is that OU wants Boganowski at safety, which doesn't jive with what a lot of other schools want him to play. He's being recruited elsewhere as a linebacker or as a hybrid kind of, I believe it's Notre Dame that kind of employs the rover position, which is, I guess the best comparison you can make in Oklahoma terms would be the cheetah. There are certain teams across the country that have their own version of the cheetah that's somewhere in between a safety and a linebacker. A lot of those schools that have that type of position have recruited Boganowski for it. Seems like Oklahoma has the juice there right now. He's a real, awesome kid, 3-sport athlete, hard worker, and New Mexico State legacy. His dad played defensive end at New Mexico State back in the day. Obviously, he's too good a player for New Mexico State, so it's really open season in Michael Boganowski's recruitment. I like where Oklahoma sits right now. Probably not confident enough yet to drop a crystal ball prediction, but Oklahoma does seem to have situated themselves nicely for him.
Yeah, you and I talked about this earlier today on Boganowski. Oklahoma's the only school that's recruiting him as a safety. Nobody really knows that. I mean, that's something I think I told you about that I come to find out a little bit by talking through sources and stuff like that. And I know his mom really, really enjoyed the visit, as you said, like that. Outside of that, man, that's your guy. Like, that's literally all I know about him. Is Oklahoma's the only school that offered him as a safety and recruited him as a safety, and his mom really, really liked the visit. And they do expect him to take an official at some point in June and potentially return in April for another visit. People are asking about Jaden Hardy. Look, Jaden Hardy, again, Oklahoma's in a good spot there. Along the lines of what Oklahoma's looking for at safety is big body guys. They're going to the SEC. So I'm told that it's been put upon the staff and everything to really go after big body players at almost every position. And that means corner and safety as well. That's why you get the Boganowskis of the world that would normally be kind of recruited as a linebacker, like he is at almost everywhere else except for Oklahoma. But they like him to be able to kind of that rover cheetah / strong safety type of guy. So they're looking for big body guys. Hardy isn't the biggest body guy, but you're also in on guys like Aaron Flowers. That's a little bit longer. And then there's a name that I was told tonight that it's an odd name. He's out of New Jersey. Vabu Turi. He has 2 brothers that played at Rutgers. He's got a uncle that played in the NFL. He will be visiting Oklahoma on the 21st. Our guy Brian Doan will have more on that tomorrow. So that's another safety guy that Oklahoma's in on. Sounds like Ohio State, Penn State, Oklahoma, and one other school are kind of his top 4 right now from what I've been told. So that's a name I hadn't heard of. I had no idea Oklahoma was pressing until tonight. So you guys got first dibs on that. I think it's kind of interesting that name's popped up, but he will be on the 21st supposedly visiting Oklahoma. He was supposed to be there last weekend apparently, but weather and everything kind of canceled the flight, got kind of jacked up, and he had to reschedule. So now it looks like the 21st, but our guy Brian Doan will have more on that. People are asking Parker about wide receiver recruiting. That is a great question. Great question. Outside of Bryant Wesco and maybe Zion Kearney, like we have no idea where Oklahoma stands with a lot of these guys.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I don't know that we don't know where they stand. I think it's that there are enough guys that are really high on Oklahoma that it's not quite akin to the running back situation, but Oklahoma's going to take 3 receivers. It's kind of hard to tell which 3 because I think Bryant Wesco ends up in the class. You and I both have crystal balls in for Oklahoma for Wesco. Beyond that, yeah, they're in really good shape with Zion Kearney. Yeah, Zion Reagans likes Oklahoma a lot. JoJo Stone, the LSU commit, still in contact with OU, has told you, Brandon, that he's going to take an official visit to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And then KJ Daniels, the kid out of Louisiana, had an awesome time at OU this past weekend at Junior Day. And the one I'm keeping an eye on, I'm telling y'all, this is a name to know, is Isaiah McMorris out of Nebraska. Isaiah McMorris, high 3-star kid right now out of Bellevue West, same high school that produced Caden Helms. He's going to visit Oklahoma on March 31st. Really likes OU. Right now, his recruitment is a battle between OU and Penn State. So if that's a kid that is a take at OU and is willing to commit proactively and beat some guys to the punch in terms of his timeline, right now, I figure he ends up in the class.
Who's this again?
This is Isaiah McMorris.
Okay.
We're talking about. Yeah.
Okay.
Kid Emmett Jones really likes, a kid that really likes Oklahoma and has a lot of familiarity there with Caden Helms and with Emmett Jones, who was the first collegiate coach to offer him at Texas Tech. So that's a visit I'm watching closely heading into the latter stages of the month of March, because he wants to take all 5 official visits. But if Oklahoma really knocks that thing out of the park, I wouldn't consider it an impossibility that they could maybe get him to speed that timeline up. Because as I mentioned, there are really only 2 schools right now that McMorris is really, really serious about. And that's Oklahoma and that's Penn State.
Yeah. I don't know anything about McMorris. That's more your speed there. I do know KJ Daniels, and everybody keeps asking about him. I totally expect him to take an official visit to Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma's in a really good spot for him. I think they've made him a priority, and I thought it was interesting because obviously, when Emmett Jones got hired, he was one of the first guys that he pinpointed and really started to go after at Oklahoma. So, I mean, he's going to be an interesting guy moving forward. I think if LSU was to offer, I think, I'm not really 100% sure they have or haven't, but if they do go ahead and offer and make a move for KJ Daniels or Kelly Daniels, however you want to look at it. Obviously, LSU hasn't offered. He's got Texas Tech, Tulane, Louisiana Tech, Houston, Cincinnati, Arkansas State, and there's a couple others that I'm missing here, but off the top of my head, I just don't think that Oklahoma's going to be easily beaten here. I think Emmett Jones, being one of the main coaches that offered him, like right off the bat when he got to Oklahoma, and Oklahoma being who they are, they want to prioritize that speed. They want those guys that can get deep. They're not really into, I mean, you heard Marvin Mims talk about it. There's not a huge route tree that Oklahoma uses. So Daniels fits that. I think he's kind of in the mold of a Hollywood Brown, where he's not the biggest guy at 5'10", 160 pounds, but he can go. And he's going to get behind the defense. And Oklahoma wants to stretch the field. They want to run RPOs. And that's the offense that they run. I mean, it's just kind of the spread veer type deal. So I I think he fits Oklahoma. And I think if Oklahoma can get him back for an official visit, I really think he'll be a part of the class right now. Like, I would predict him as a wide receiver in the class at this juncture. And I don't think that's like a stretch at all. So if we're to both agree on it, McMorris, Wesco, Daniels, and the fourth one's kind of up in the air, Parker. People keep asking about Micah Hudson. I don't see him a part of the class.
No,
I
nor
just
do
don't
I.
see it. Yep.
Nor do I.
Not
If
at
I
all.
had to project the 3 wide receivers that end up in this class as of right now, if I'm throwing darts, I would say Wesco, I'd say Zion Carney, and I'd say McMorris.
You would go, no, you're not picking Daniels?
I'm not picking Daniels just because if Daniels ever gets the LSU offer, it's over.
No, that's going to be tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's if he gets the LSU offer, it is over. And that's kind of what makes me reticent right now, because he does really like Oklahoma, but the one he's waiting on is LSU. And so I think that may be a kid also that chooses not to commit for quite some time because he's waiting to see if LSU will offer, because LSU's been hitting him up. They've been recruiting him. They haven't offered yet, but Cortez Hankton is in regular contact with KJ Daniels. So that caveat makes me a little skeptical about KJ Daniels ending up in the class. So right now I'd say Wesco, Carney, McMorris.
Yeah. Ronnie Crimson asked about Umio Zulu, and where Oklahoma stands there. Again, he's one of the top targets they're after, but I don't foresee him picking Oklahoma. I think he really likes Oklahoma. He's one of Oklahoma's top targets. I just don't know that he's the top target. And right now, the way Oklahoma is recruiting on the defensive line in the edge, it just doesn't seem like, this is just my opinion. So I don't want people to take it to the bank or anything like that. Or if a recruit sees this, I don't want to say, well, Oklahoma doesn't think I'm this or that. My opinion. If I was to put the edge rushers on like a, tier, I guess would be the best way to put it. Deshaun Ross and Williams Nwaneri would be right here. And then you would kind of have everybody else kind of down below. I mean, that's where it's at. And I think Umio Zulu is in that mix below those two. And again, I think Nwaneri it's a debate if he's an edge rusher or not, to be honest. And I think Parker, you believe that he will do that. But at 260 or 70 pounds already, it's hard to see, where he lands in that moving forward. I think, and I wouldn't even, honestly, Logan Thomas out of Paydow is another guy that may be up there in that tier, 1B, Lindstrom as well. I think those guys are way up there as far as who they're going after on the edge, but it starts and ends number 1, number 2, which is Deshaun Ross and Umio Zulu right now. If I was to guess, and at defensive tackle, I think Nigel Smith, Davian Sims, David Stone, and then after that, TJ Lindsey. And then you get guys like Dominic McKinley. I'm trying to think of these guys off the top of my head here. And Aiden Breland, Joseph, Jonah Ajone, and Amarius Williams would be kind of the guys that, I think are in that higher tier for Oklahoma. Don't get me wrong, though, Parker. I will say I want to add that there have been some offers thrown out here recently. Guys like Caleb Mitchell-Irving.
Yeah.
Out of he's out of the DFW area.
That's right.
Yeah, Caleb, he was at DeSoto, wasn't he originally? He played at DeSoto originally, right?
I believe you're
Caleb Mitchell?
correct. Yes.
Yeah. I remember watching him when he was like in 8th grade. I think he's at Parish Episcopal now, if I remember correctly. But he's a guy that Oklahoma just offered. Caleb Mitchell Irving is his correct name. I think he's a guy that Oklahoma is going to pursue pretty hard down the road as well. And I think you're going to see them from this point on outside of, they're going to pick a few guys in the Southeast and, in California and elsewhere. But Parker, you and I have talked about this before. Here lately, they haven't had to leave. Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas have produced amazing defensive linemen that there's no need to leave your region. You have a better chance to land those guys too.
Yeah, Oklahoma's going to have some tough decisions here as spring turns to summer as far as who they prioritize and who they kind of cool on. Because it seems like every single staffer across the board really has done an outstanding job at developing relationships with multiple targets within their position group. Now, the tough part is going to be, you realize that you're close to getting a commitment from this guy and this guy. Well, that means you kind of have to start gradually slowing things down with this guy and this guy and this guy. And so I think on the defensive line, obviously the four highest priority guys are Nwaneri, Sims, Stone, Smith. Those are kind of the big four. But you mentioned Ja'Shawn Ross, Brandon. I think the big thing for Oklahoma is just getting him to accelerate his timeline because he doesn't want to take his official visits until the fall. I don't know if OU wants to wait that long. And so if you can get that guy to move his official visit slate up to early summer and have the OVs done by the end of June, then I think you stand a really good chance of adding Ja'Shawn Ross to the class. But outside of that, absent an accelerated timeline from Ross, I'm just not really sure whether Oklahoma would be 100% willing to wait out that timeline if there are other guys that start to really warm up to Oklahoma that are also high on the board at the edge position. That's going to be, it's going to be the interesting aspect of it for me is who wants in early and who is Oklahoma willing to take early. Because there are also going to be guys that want to commit by April or May. And they're going to be guys at highly competitive position groups where taking a commitment means you might have to slow your pursuit of a guy that's higher ranked at that position or that you like better at that position. So that's where you face the dilemma of, okay, do you take the bird in the hand or do you chase the two in the bush, as it were?
No doubt. If you're Oklahoma, in my opinion, I honestly believe by May, by the middle of June, end of June, I think you'll know where Davian Sims is going. I think it's going to be Oklahoma, obviously. I think Oklahoma, I know they're going to get the last visit from him. At this point in time, that's the plan. August, you will know where David Stone's going. Nigel Smith is actually going to be there's a 7-on-7 tournament in Melissa that my kid's playing at, and he is going to be there actually in that tournament. So we're going to talk there because he's not going to be at the UA camp, he says. So, which is disappointing, unfortunate. I really wanted to see him live. And so I think those three, obviously, we both think are going to be in Oklahoma's class at this point, right? We agree on that. And then Williams Nwaneri, when do you think he'll announce? Do you feel like it's going to be a July, June deal,
yes.
Or do you think it's going to be, you do? Is it June or July? Which one?
I would think July. Probably on about the same timetable that Caden Green announced. I think he announced on July 8th, maybe. Maybe it was the following week, July 15th, something like that. Early to mid-July is when I would expect a decision from Will.
Early July. And I think that's probably, I think that's when I was told to expect is Davian Sims was like right around July 1st or so, or the first week. So, and then linebacker, people ask about Sammy Brown. I'm trying to get up to see him this week. He was not at the UA camp. So with me going to Atlanta already, I'm trying to make that drive to see him up in Jefferson as well before I leave the ATL Metro. But he's going to be on campus, obviously, the first weekend of April. Back for, I think it's his third unofficial visit to Oklahoma. Second or third, I can't remember. It's really kind of a 3-team race, I'm told. Clemson, Georgia, Oklahoma. Ohio State's still in it. He's gonna visit them. But his relationship with Brent Venables is what made Oklahoma a major player here. They have a chance to make a move. They are going to get an official visit. As a matter of fact, Oklahoma is going to get Sammy Brown's last official visit in June, the very last one. So that'll be interesting. And they're another target that expects to have the first 2 weeks of July. A decision is supposed to be made. So again, it's going to play out a lot like 2023, guys and gals. First June, July, early to middle August, you're going to see a lot of momentum for Oklahoma. And you're going to see Oklahoma go from obscurity to be a top 10, top 5 class when it's all said and done again, in our opinion. And I think it all could start on April 8th, potentially.
It very well could, if not sooner.
Very well could. Yep.
If not sooner. Is somebody going to beat him to the punch? That's the big question.
Yep. So, anyways, yeah, I think at the end of the day, Oklahoma's looking really good. Let's see here. We have a chat from RGK86. Thank you for the super chat. I'm setting the over-under on 5 stars in the 2024 class at 2.5. Are we taking the under or over? 2.5. Let's see here. Because here's the hard question, Parker. It's just like last year, like you have late guys that move into that 5-star range. Like a Nigel Smith could.
Yeah.
Right? A Davian Sims could. Right? What about a Corian Gibson? Like guys like that. Go ahead. What do you have over under?
I think honestly, the way you have to think about this question being phrased is, does Oklahoma, if you take our word for it, Brandon, if you take our word for it that Will Nwaneri and David Stone both end up in the class, does Oklahoma sign a 5-star not named Will Nwaneri or David Stone? I'd be inclined to say yes. And how about this? How about this, Brandon? Here's another guy that could rise into 5-star territory potentially. Bryant Wesco.
Yeah. No, I guess. So would you take the over?
I'll take the over. I'll say they get 3, which is what they got last year. So
I agree.
I'll say they get 3.
You have 6 5-stars in 2 cycles. That's SEC like recruiting right there, guys and gals. I think 3 is a good number. Really good number. All right. I think we can end right there, right? Like,
yeah,
I know we didn't get to the NFL Combine. Mims did really well. Jalen Redmond moved himself up into, now he's not, I don't think he's going to be second or third round, but I think 4th, 5th round is potential with how he performed, right? You think that's too high, 5th round?
Let me wait till the pro day to render a judgment on that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. March 30th.
Yeah. By the way, somebody asked in the chat, I just want to hit it before we get out of here. Monty asked, how big of a threat is Notre Dame to Oklahoma for Peyton Pierce? It's more of an Ohio State Oklahoma battle at this point than it is Notre Dame Oklahoma. The Notre Dame buzz appears to have come and passed.
There you go. All right. Well, right now it's $1 for the first month, $9.95 afterwards. If you join OU Insider, or you can do 50% off, $53, 52, something like that. I think it's 53. Get you a whole year of OU Insider. It's a little over $53, but the regular price is $108, over $108. So you're getting a heck of a deal. And it gets you a whole year of us and all 24/7 sports. So if you want to join us, and with spring happening and, all these visits that are about to take place, March 25th, Junior Day is about to take place. April is about to be really big with visits. The spring game's coming up, and then the official visits are allowed to start in April, May, June, and a little bit of July as well. So look, if you want to join us, we'd love to have you. We're one of the fastest growing sites on 24/7 sports. And we would love your support. The people that are on there have allowed us to be one of the fastest growing sites already. And we can't thank you guys enough. We're blessed to do this for you all each and every week. And we really mean that. Like, we love our job and we love bringing you guys information each and every week. So thank you guys so much for joining us on this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live. For Parker Thune, for Spencer Forsythe, you guys have a blessed week.